And away we go. It is the BCJ podcast presented by the Holy Grail right here on BearcatJournal.com. Hey, if you're not doing anything tomorrow here in the fine state of Cincinnati, maybe find yourself down at the banks along with a couple 100,000 of your closest friends. While you're there, make sure you stop by and see our good friends at the Holy Grail. And while you're there, get yourself a Cincy Light, because the Holy Grail supports the Bearcats and they go above and beyond. So every Cincy Light purchased at the Holy Grail, they will donate an extra 50 cents to the Cincy Reigns Collective. Support those that support us. Support those that support the Bearcats. The Holy Grail at the banks. It's going to be summer is ready to go. So make sure you're getting down there and drinking some Cincy Lights. All right, let's get to it. It's a lot going on. Spring football is about halfway done. We are flying towards the spring game on April 14th, right? 14th?
13th.
13th, April 13th. So we are headed quickly down that road. We'll talk some spring football later in the show. We will talk the end of the basketball season and get into what comes next for Wes Miller and his bunch. But first, special guest tonight, Cincinnati Athletic Director John Cunningham. John, welcome. Good to see you again. It's been a little while. Got to see you practice today and catch up a little bit, but welcome to the show and good to see you.
Yeah, Chad, good to see you guys. Dave, good to see you.
You too.
Yeah, practice was a little chilly today. I was surprised how chilly it got out there, but yeah, it was fun to see those guys flying around.
As soon as we left, the sun came out.
Yeah, was that what? Yeah. That's how it always works for me.
Immediately, I was driving across the bridge over the moat back into God's country, and it was perfectly sunny. There was like 4 clouds in the sky. I was like, great. We just froze for 2 hours, and it was beautiful the minute the practice was over. But
no, this city needs it to be nice tomorrow. It doesn't need it to be nice today. So I think we're going to get better weather tomorrow for opening day. So that's a good thing.
Have you done opening day?
I went last year. Yeah, we had some of the football staff go last year, and I think a few of those guys are going back again tomorrow. But yeah, it was fun. I hadn't done it until last year, and boy, it's a party. It's fun.
Dave is a huge baseball fan, so he makes it a point to get down there every year.
I will be there tomorrow.
Are you? You going?
Not to the game. I'm going to the pregame festivities.
All right. You're going to stop by the Holy Grail and have a Cincy Light?
I might be able to do that.
It's a lot. Like I've done it. I've driven cars in the parade for various radio stations. I love it. Like I love the way that the city embraces it. It's a lot of people.
We have a company get together that I'm sure the beverages will be complimentary. So I'm not sure I'll be leaving that outpost to deal with the millions and millions of people that will be down there.
What dawned on me is that I've got to reorder my Fubo so I can watch my Reds all summer. So it's a staple in my household. My boys are locked in, so I've got to have those games on. And got Fubo, dropped it, and then now I got to get it back again to watch those games.
It's once the kids get involved, John, there's no turning back. Like you are pot committed for a long time.
I think we ended up going to 6 or 7 games last year, and that's the great thing about living here. Just on a random Sunday afternoon or something, you just decide to go buy some tickets and go. And man, when you got boys that love baseball, being in Cincinnati is not a bad place to be. So it's been a lot of fun. They know more about Major League Baseball than I do. I mean, they're locked in.
Have you taught them how to keep score? Do you take a scorebook?
Gosh, are we? I hope we're not beyond that point, but maybe we are. I don't know. I don't see a lot of people taking scoring board, but my dad always did. I mean, gosh, Gosh, I don't. Can you take score on your cell phone? Maybe that's the question. There's your app.
There
There's
has
your
to be an
idea.
app.
Yeah.
There has to be an app.
Yeah.
Although most people now would probably be like, "What are you talking about?
No,
What do you mean?"
Yeah. I remember going to the games and having my dad. We would always, growing up in Nebraska, we'd always go down to Kansas City to the Royals games, and he'd try to catch a double hitter. That was his big thing. It was like you get 2 for 1, right? So we'd go sit there all day and watch baseball, and he would keep score, and that was the thing.
All right, let's get to it. We'll start with the big event coming up on the 11th. Couple friends of Bearcat Journal, guys that used to do content with us back in the day before they became world famous mega stars. But Jason and Travis Kelsey coming to Nippert Stadium. Just for those that aren't fully aware, kind of how did this come about? How did the two sides get together and decide, like, we're going to bring the #1 podcast in America to Nippert Stadium?
Yeah, I mean, it took a while, a lot of different conversations over the year. I think Chad, maybe you even caught me at one point and said, "Hey, we should get these guys back." And so we knew we wanted them here, and so we kind of started the conversations early on, and it was really a Cincy Reigns operation mostly. As we talked to the Cincy Reigns leadership, we just thought it was such a natural fit for them to be involved and try to raise some money for NIL, because it's so important to what we're doing. So they were certainly involved in early conversations, and then you kind of hit football season, and what we realized is that Travis and Jason both had to finish off their years before we were going to get real much traction on that type of operation. So we waited until they got done, and then as soon as that happened, it really got going quickly. They've got a media company called Wave Media that's been involved, and so they jumped in with Cincy Reigns and brought 8 people to campus and did the whole thing and evaluated what it would look like in Nippert, and so that's really how it got going, and it's been a lot of work since. Give a lot of credit to Anthony DeFino and a number of Ben Hofstetter, a lot of people on my staff that have made this a priority. And then a lot of people within Cincy Reigns as well that are working hard to pull this off internally. So we're going to try to put on a great show. And the good thing is, the fun part about this is you don't know what you're going to get in any way. But those guys are going to bring the excitement and the fun and the laughs. And so we're looking forward to having them here. And then they're talking about bringing several guests with them, and we don't know exactly who that's going to be, but they'll be high level and really, really fun times.
John Cunningham says it was Chad Brendel's idea to bring New Heights to Nippert Stadium.
Oh yeah, that's a great idea for him to even bigger.
Tell the truth. I know you were one of the. I would say there were multiple people that hit me on that, but I know, Chad, you were one of those. So you were an early adopter of getting New Heights on campus.
I know people maybe get a little bit of a sticker shock at the price, but it just kind of help explain, like, the reason that is one of the reasons that is where it is because so much of a portion of it is going to be sectioned aside to hopefully give a pretty significant boost to Cincy Reigns, not just a token boost, maybe, if you will.
Yeah, we really feel like it can drive a big number for us for Cincy Reigns, and it's just so important. We talk all the time about this new era that we live in, and if you don't have NIL money, you can't compete in the Big 12. It's just a fact, and so we're really driving that. We understand that there's a lot of misconceptions about NIL, and there's a lot of things that people are unsure about. We get all of that, but as we sit right now for at least the next year or two, in the world of donor-driven NIL, we've got to try to raise money for it, and we've got to be in the game, and this is one way to do that. We really feel like when Cincy Reigns started, one of the things they talked about is we're going to bring our fan base together, and we're going to really create fun exciting events around being a part of being involved in Cincy Reigns. And so this was just a natural fit of those two things. So you get the entertainment piece, you get the biggest podcast in the country, maybe the world. They're gonna have a lot of fun with it. It's essentially a concert type of situation. And then on top of that, you get to participate and make a donation to Cincy Reigns to help us compete. There's no better, more direct way to help the Bearcats right now in the world that we live in than giving to Cincy Reigns and helping, Coach Satterfield, Wes Miller, Katrina Merriweather have the fuel that they need to go out, get the very best, retain the very best, and compete.
I guess knowing how important all that is, how would you assess where not you guys, because the university has to technically be hands off with it, but just being in the Big 12 for, I won't say a full year, but your basketball and football is now over. Where do you guys stand, and how do you feel it's gone so far with Cincy Reigns and with the NIL space, and where can, obviously you're never going to get to where you want to be because you're always fundraising for it, but the reaction from the fans, the reaction from the athletes with the opportunities that you guys have set up for them, is it progressing the way you had hoped? Are there been roadblocks that have popped up that you didn't anticipate? Just kind of the overall assessment of how being in the Big 12 and the NLI space has kind of worked together so far.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it is progressing really well. I think we've made some big strides, especially within the past probably 6 to 8 months, to find ways to again fuel our collective the right way. And I've always said at Cincinnati, we're going to have to feel comfortable with how we do things and the way we approach it. But at the same time, we've got to be in the space. And so I think we've really done well. In a lot of ways. There's always things that we can do better and growth that we need to make. I think the biggest growth area that we have is just, again, the masses. I've always talked about the Green Bay Packers and their approach to ownership of their team, which is essentially, if you are a season ticket holder, you're a part owner of that team, you're invested in a very significant way and in a financial way. I feel that same way about our fan base. We need everybody. We have such a large alumni base and such a large fan base, 300,000 living alumni around the country, and 150,000 of those live in a very, an hour or two away from campus. So if we just got our core base to participate at some level, we could really take this thing to another level and start to lap people. And I believe that, and that's my goal. That's kind of what this podcast is all about. As Cincy Reigns brought it to our attention that we could do this and really raise a lot of money. But David, kind of back to your point, we're always trying to figure it out. We're trying to find ways outside of just donor funded, money. We've had a lot of donors step up in a very big way. We've had a lot of donors step up in a smaller way. We appreciate all of them, as we always do. But we've also been able to, Cincy Reigns has been able to partner with Ryan Geis on Cincy Light. That's been abundantly successful, way more successful than I think anybody on either side thought it could be. And it's just that's been awesome because it's reoccurring. It's something that can continue to grow and we can all attach ourselves to. Plus, it's a brand play. What a great brand play for University of Cincinnati athletics, but also for Cincy Reigns and the collective. So that's been great. We've had other partnerships with local businesses that have gone really well. I think we're also a leader in the space of NIL and kind of that more traditional NIL business to student athlete piece. I think we're leading in that space, and maybe specifically with regard to our female sports. We've got a couple people that really focused in on going out and finding corporations to work with our female student athletes. Kroger has stepped up in that way. Others have stepped up, and we had something on campus recently called In Her Likeness. That was just our female student athletes learning how to use their name, image, and likeness, their brand, to go to market. So we've really focused on that too. But holistically, we can always get better. But boy, I feel like we've taken a lot of strides, and I'm proud of the success that we've had. It's been a startup, from the beginning to the end without a lot of initial investment money that is put in. It's a startup, learning along the way, and then having to adjust along the way with all the different rule changes and adjustments that every school has had to make. So it's been a process.
With the Kelsey's coming and with for the New Heights podcast and everything, did you guys have a ticket goal in mind? Have you reached it? Are you approaching it? Kind of lay out to us, like, because this is something that no one's really ever done. So how do you even like ballpark what a good expectation is, a great event, an insane event? Like, how do you even go about doing that?
I'm not sure. I mean, we're trying to sell as many tickets as we possibly can. We have tickets available. So we have not reached our goal. You're going to see some additional marketing going out to try to sell more tickets. Obviously, we've had a lot of people that jumped on board, and we feel good about the numbers that we have. And we know a lot of students are going to show up. Students are free to attend. That was part of the mandates from the Kelseys, and it was something that we truly believe in too. So we're going to get a lot of student presence there. So we'll have a great crowd. I think right now we're just trying to make sure that we reach as many people as we can, let them know that, number one, it's going to be a really fun night. And it's a chance to embrace, two loyal Bearcats that have gone on to do amazing things, right? I think everybody loves the fact that they give so much back and provide so much brand recognition to the Bearcats. Well, then they're coming back to their city. Let's really embrace them. That's number one. And then also number two, it's a chance to raise some money for our teams to retain the very best and to go get the very best players that we can to compete. So, we've got tickets to sell. You're going to see more of it. We're going to push it hard and try to sell as many as we can, see if we can get a sellout.
All you have to do is say 2 words and it'll sell out.
I know those 2 words. I think I know those 2 words. Usually in the past, I could have just said free beer, but they're different 2 words.
That's how you get like 42-year-olds with no hair to show up. But I don't know.
I was going to say, John, we understand what a startup looks like. When we started up, Dave had hair and no beard. And it's
10 years later.
Migrated south.
Well, the NIL world is starting to push this thing back to me. So. But that's college athletics right now, man. It is, watch for changes, as they say in jazz music. Watch for changes and be able to adapt and adjust. And we'll figure it out. I promise you, college athletics will be okay. We'll hit an equilibrium where it all kind of makes sense. I really do believe in that. And I think we're quickly approaching that type of model, but for now it's a little rocky, and we need everybody's help for at least a few more years to keep us competitive.
Where do they go to get tickets for those that don't know?
Yeah, go to GoBearcats/New Heights, and like I said, tickets are available. GoBearcats/New Heights. I'm going to double check that to make sure I got that right, but I
think it's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that
sounds right.
Sounds correct, right? Yeah. I've only said it about 10 times. Yeah, go. Oh, you know what? I forgot. GoBearcats.com/New Heights.
Yeah.
Yep.
I want to ask you with those 2 guys coming back, and this is a question we get a lot. So, as the voice of the fans, their careers at UC maybe not exemplify what being on the Ring of Honor, the protocols and the standards and everything, but kind of where's the university and you and all the people that make those decisions on how we kind of move forward with our great alumni, whether it's because of what they did while at UC or now in this case UC plus professionally and even outside of that, and then into like basketball, as far as like is there discussion of getting to the point of maybe not flat retiring numbers, but honoring players? Because, I mean, we go back a long time into the 90s of a lot of uber important guys that their numbers haven't been retired, and maybe they shouldn't be, but there should be some more recognition of, on the football and basketball side, and for the female athletes as well, just kind of how is that going? Is there any discussion about how we can maybe bring more light to some of our great alumni athletes?
Yeah, so we have a small committee now that I've formed to really dive into this and do it the right way. It's never as easy as everybody thinks. I think if the tricky parts are that, well, number one, I think when you have multiple athletic directors with different ideas on how and who should be in Hall of Fames, and you get different criteria over the years, and it starts getting a little messy. You have these barnacles from the past that kind of impact who got in, and then it seems unbalanced, and so you got to be careful. There's actually a lot of thought, I think, that needs to go into this. And I'd like to, one of the things I told this small group of people is I'd like to set a standard and an approach that can live well beyond my time and well beyond the athletic director after me, something that really can live on for a long time, so it becomes more standardized and more clear, like it is at some places. Wes Miller came to us, was at North Carolina, obviously, and they have very specific standards on how you achieve Hall of Fame status or go up into the rafters and those types of things. So that's what this group is starting to dive into. It'll never be perfect. You're gonna either skip over somebody or put somebody in before somebody else that probably deserved it more. I mean, it's just, that's how it goes. But you want to try to build something out that has some standard to it, some consistency. And we know we're missing people without question. And to your point, Dave, there has to be criteria that goes beyond just necessarily how many plays they made as a Bearcat. If they've gone on to do really special things and continue to drive the Bearcat brand going forward, that needs to play into it at some level as well. So, when this group finishes kind of their look at it, would love to kind of roll it out to everybody and share it. That was the other thing. I want it to be really transparent for people as much as possible. There's going to be you got to have a little bit of leeway in there, but I would like people to kind of understand why we're doing things and when we're doing it. Yeah.
Has there been, like, you bring up the North Carolina example, and that's the one that I always think about because they don't necessarily retire the number, but they have so many banners of just the historic players up in the rafters. And I know we have a backlog, I think, especially on the basketball side, of guys that were instrumental, to the Final Four team who maybe weren't first team All-Americans. And if that was the criteria way back in the past, and then they're getting left out, is there any thought to kind of maybe a process in cooperation with kind of how the Bengals have done the Ring of Honor, where the fan vote plays a part into it? And if you've been a season ticket holder for a long time, you get however many years you've been a season ticket holder, that's how many times your vote counts. And then you guys take fan consideration into what your group is also thinking about.
I think everything's on the table. I haven't heard that approach thrown out there by this group, but I think I'm going to go back to them now that you say that, and say that this may be something we should at least look at as one element to figuring out how we make these decisions. But yeah, I want to charge this group to come up with some ideas, and then we're going to meet and really spend some time on it over the summer, and hopefully have something to roll out, or at least start to make movement toward adding people that need to be added, both in the Ring of Honor in football and into the rafters and in basketball. And it's got to be, I agree. I don't think you retire numbers. I think you recognize great achievement, and maybe you have different levels. And there's been some mock-ups of things that we could do within Fifth Third to kind of show the different levels. You have your elite group, then you have your retired or not retired numbers, but you have your group, your next level, and then you probably have that honorable mention group too that deserves to be highlighted somewhere as well. So I do think there's 2 or 3 levels to it, and we're going to try to look at all those things and get it right.
Like, I think I can say if you got the ball rolling, you'd earn a heck of a lot of brownie points with a lot of people. Because I think the main thing is people are just kind of like, why does this take so long to honor our great athletes? But we'll move off of that. And Chad, you got another one for him? Because if you don't,
I was going to say we have just completed a basketball season. We are now fall and winter seasons in the books. The spring season's still ongoing. There have been plenty of ups. There have been plenty of downs. When you talked about day one ready, how close do you think? I mean, obviously the Big 12, there's just an inherent jump that you're not going to be ready for moving up, a level. But how do you think you have navigated so far this move into this league?
Yeah, I mean, day one ready was about being ready to
money.
compete.
I know.
Yeah, and I just kind of like being ready to compete in everything across. Like it wasn't just our teams. I mean, we've staffed up. We've made some real strategic investment into different areas within the athletics department, and obviously the big one now that big is in a big structure that if you've been to campus is arising out of the ground that's going to really change the game for us in terms of our indoor and performance center, nutrition center. So that was part of the day one ready. And then also you got to remember the day one ready was supposed to be a year later. And we moved it up a year for all the right reasons to jump into the Big 12. So that played a little bit of a role in kind of where we are. But I've been really happy overall. I think we've competed in every one of our sports. Obviously I think we're not where we were necessarily in the American in terms of at the top in every sport, but I am proud of our coaches for their grit and their competition level. I think it takes a few years to recruit into the Big 12. I think that's been proven over the history of schools making the jump from one conference to another. If you look at TCU, where I was at when they were in the Mountain West, their jump into the Big 12, it really took them 2 or 3 years to get their feet underneath them in terms of the level of talent that they have and being able to win championships. They took a step back in a number of sports. And then you look at Utah is another great example, another Mountain West Conference school that jumped into the Pac-12 and really took a step back for a few years and then got their feet underneath them. And now they're the best team. They left the Pac-12 as the best team, the gold standard of the Pac-12, and they'll enter into our league with a lot of momentum. So I think that's certainly something that I'm aware of, that our coaches are aware of. We want to give them, again, all the resources and take away any obstacles that they have to being able to compete. And I think that's part of being day one ready. I think we've worked hard at that. But I think we're really strong. And I think, the other thing that I love that Coach Miller said, and I've used this before, is he just one day in a all staff meeting, or actually it was a head coaches meeting, he just said, guys, this league is making me a better coach. It's making us all a better coach. And I think that's something too, where you got to recognize that just being in this league, it's raising our level. And we understand what it's going to take now after being in this league for 1 year. And I'm excited about year 2 because I think we're going to be better across the board in year 2. And I think we'll be better in year 3 than we are in year 2. So I just think that this is how it's built. I'm really proud of all of our programs. I'm really proud of our football program. I just feel very strongly that they have taken on the challenge and haven't backed away or shied away from the fact that they didn't perform well last year in terms of wins and losses. And I think that they've made some incredible strides this year in terms of culture and just building that thing out, which takes time. And, I go to practice and I just feel the energy this year. And I'm really excited about where Coach Satterfield's heading and how he's kind of approached this.
We talked about this a little bit today. As an administrator, as an athletic director, what is your take on seeing how much ownership they have claimed on last year not being good enough? I've talked about this before. there are coaches that will hide from it. There are coaches that will make excuses when they have a year like that in year one, blame the previous staff, blame a million other things. And from what we have seen from this bunch and everything that has come out, everything that the players have talked about, the coaching staff has talked about, not just the head coach, saying head coach things, but it feels like it's real that they are saying, we understand there is a standard here, and we did not meet that standard last year. And there's no excuses for that. We have to get better. From your perspective, that has to be refreshing, right? That's not something you mandated. That's something they believe.
Yeah, I would say almost every coach, when they have a bad year, has some sort of excuse that they either just proactively acknowledge or kind of subtly suggest. And I haven't seen any of that, to your point, right, Chad. I mean, it's not even it's an ownership of the fact that, at the end of the day, it's about wins and losses and how you perform on the field. And there's an ownership to that I think is really remarkable, and I've been impressed with. And sometimes you just have to live in the struggle a little bit and you just face it head on. And I think that's the one thing that they've been able to get across to the players is yeah, it's tough out there, right? It's tough. It's tough when you don't win. And then now you got to come back and work even harder and just kind of live in it every day and just know that you don't ever want to feel this way again. And so you got to perform better. And so I don't know. I've been really inspired by it. I always say that you learn a lot about people when they walk through the fire, and it's easy when everything's going well. And usually when things aren't going well, you learn a lot about people. And boy, man, I feel really strongly about the character of this entire staff and a lot of our young people on this team. This is now, I didn't feel this way last year. I feel this way now. I think this is a player-led team, which we didn't have that going into last year. And partly because it's just, it's a new system, a new coaching staff, and it's hard to develop that in a quick period of time. But great teams, players lead, and I'm feeling that right now with this group.
Leadership, unfortunately, is not a game of duck, duck, goose. You don't just get to tap somebody on the head and go, okay, everybody, listen to this guy. Like, it's organic. And I feel like it's a lot more organic this year than where we were a year ago.
No question. Yep.
One coach I do want to give you a ton of praise on and credit for. I have been really impressed with Katrina Merriweather and what her staff and her vision of this program, because she has some ownership, because she has, something that burns maybe a little deeper inside her. But I thought the jump that we saw from that group going into year one was really impressive, that it did seem that they bought in really quick to what they were being preached and what they were being told and what it meant to her. It seemed like she hit the ground running, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that this team, you got to remember where they ended last year. Yeah. They ended at the very bottom of the American Conference and then lost some players. And so for Katrina to come in, and have to, similar to other coaches that take over a program that's been down a little bit, you get what's there, and then you got to bring in a couple pieces, and then you got to raise the level of everybody that's there. And she did that. In my mind, this was the very best I've ever seen Jillian Hayes play. I thought she had a really great year as a leader of that team. She's just such a remarkable young person. But then to see her really perform well and be Big 12 good, right? I mean, she was right there with all those great players in the Big 12, and she could compete with any of them. And then a freshman with Reagan as a point guard and losing one of your guards early in the season and having to deal with that. And then competing and winning multiple Big 12 games and being in a lot of Big 12 games at home and on the road, beating a Toledo team that was really good that took it to us the year before. So there was just a lot of great moments, I thought, with this team. And I was down there in Kansas City with them and got to be around them for a week down there. And again, to your point, Chad, the vibe was great, upbeat, energetic, fighting to the finish of the season. And that's what I know Katrina was really proud about. Now they took 18 days off and tried to go compete in the WNIT. And I just don't think that they were, they were slow out of the gate, and it got away from them. And so I know she was disappointed with that, but she got more practice out of doing that. And I know that this team's going to be ready, and she's going to add a lot of pieces to it for next year. We're going to be better.
It was essentially like a bowl game for them. The regular season ended, and then they had a month.
Yeah. Yeah, that's honestly, yeah. And then and like a bowl game, you don't know who's going to show up, necessarily when the ball's kicked or the ball's tipped off. So they couldn't hit early, and it kind of slipped away. But again, I think it was good for him just to play in March, to have that feeling of coming back and practicing after the conference tournament. And I know that was really important to Coach Merriweather. And she's out there. She's grinded. She's grinding already in the portal. Recruiting the current team, which is always so important. You got to keep the pieces together that you want to keep, and make sure you build this thing into a Big 12 team.
Finally, basketball, Wes Miller. I think they learned early the importance of kind of playing from ahead, not just in a game, but in the conference standings in this league. I think it's, if you even fall feels like one game behind, you're dealing with quicksand a little bit. And I think the lessons for them that are learned in the best basketball conference in America in year one provide for a very bright future. And then they win 6 of their last 8 games leading into the Indiana State game last night. It felt like they really closed things off on a high note.
Yeah, number one, and I know Wes mentioned this, the crowds were awesome for the NIT. That's last year's crowd and then this year's crowd. Just fantastic to see everybody show up. The students showed up, fans showed up. They were loud. They were into it. I thought those are some of the most fun games that we had all year. So very, very thankful for that. And it was really good for this team to have those 3 games. Sometimes seasons are 2-year seasons, not 1-year seasons. And I think back to, when we were here and we went to the Peach Bowl, and I remember having a conversation with that staff after the Peach Bowl, and they said, man, we were really good this year. We're going to be great next year. Right. So they saw kind of that 2-year period of time as together. They knew what they had. They knew what they had coming back. And it kind of became one large look at what this is going to be over a 2-year period of time. I kind of feel like that with this team with Wes, to be honest with you. It feels like this was one half of what this team is going to be, right? They had to fight through, play a lot of close games, battle. And obviously they got a lot of praise within the Big 12 from other coaches and programs, and ADs would call me and just, they were so impressed with how much they fought. Our environment at Fifth Third. So we certainly held our own. And then now I think it's our time, right? So I think it's kind of a two-year model with this group, because you got to remember that some of our most important pieces were still young, and almost all of them hadn't seen the type of competition that we saw this year. So going into next year, it's going to be a totally different look at the Big 12 for the Bearcats, I think.
Heck, by the end of the year, to your point, by the end of the year, the only guy that had contributed the year before, and that was in a much more limited role, was Dan Skillings. And everybody else was new to the floor. John Newman sat out a year. He wasn't new to the program, but, they weren't there the year before. And it's not easy. And as long as, everything goes as planned, which in the portal era, who the heck knows? As long as everything goes as planned, they should have a pretty good head start on what next year looks like.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're going to have great players going into next year. And I think, to Wes's point that I mentioned, everybody on that staff is better for having been 1 year in the Big 12. I feel like I'm a better AD for having been 1 year in the Big 12. I think our marketing people are better. Our ticket people are going to be better, all of that. So I just think that next year is going to be, a big step forward for the department. And I feel like I'm ready for the ball to tip, already for next year, but we got a ways to go. And I know Wes needs a break. That guy's tired, but he's not breaking right now. I can tell you that. He's going to go hard for 6 weeks. I think he's got 6 weeks of recruiting. And that guy will absolutely outwork everybody in the country to get this team ready to go.
Anything else before we let him go, Dave?
One real quick. Can you give us an update on the construction process for the indoor practice facility, how that's going? And it feels like you got a pretty mild winter, so hopefully that didn't slow them down too much.
Yeah, they say everything's on track, which is always good. If you've been over there, you've seen the steel go up. We'll have some new pictures, I think, tomorrow, and try to get those out to everybody to see. They laid it's 3 levels of the performance center. I think they put the concrete down for the 3rd level, and then they'll do the roof later. And it's going to be, that was really important to this process. I'm told. I'm learning all kinds of new things, but they got the first trusses up, I guess they call them, and they have to get those really anchored in. And then they said over the next 2 weeks they'll build the rest of those out. And so that will allow you to really see the full shape of what this is going to be. But I was shocked by the size of it, to be honest with you. It really makes an impression when you turn right there. And it's gonna look great. And I can tell you we're really excited about it. About a year away, still when it's all said and done, it's about 1 year away from opening up.
All right. Well, thank you very much once again. New Height or GoBearcats.com/New Heights. Get your tickets. There is a sizable portion of that ticket that is going directly to Cincy Reigns. They're going to support the student athletes in a big way. The bigger and bigger that this event is on April 11th. So
we need you. Yeah, I mean, I think that's my message is we need you. We've been talking about NIL now for a couple of years, and it's important. And this is a way to give to NIL without, with getting something in return and jumping on board with Cincy Reigns. And the other thing I want to say is once you jump on board with Cincy Reigns, you're going to get access to different things along the way and events and tailgates and all kinds of things. You get koozies and discounts and all. We've really, I know Cincy Reigns has really worked hard to build out some really cool tchotchke type things and build out some really cool programs for people that are a part of it. So this is, if you haven't given anything to Cincy Reigns, this is a entry point for you, and you get to come watch the Kelsey brothers and they're going to have some fun. So, and again, they're bringing guests tonight. We don't know who those are, so I keep teasing that. But it could be anybody. But they can pull national names and big name celebrities, and I think that they will. So worth the price of admission to come out and see what happens.
I was going to say maybe you get a koozie with the Cincy light in it.
We can definitely do that. Yeah, we can definitely do that. How good is that beer, by the way?
Oh, it's so good. I've actually turned almost all of the volleyball dads on Kelsey's volleyball team into Cincy Light drinkers. Everybody used to bring different beers on the volleyball trips, and now I just bring Cincy Light and everybody drinks that. So one conversion at a time. These are all, Kentucky fans that are like, man, that's a good beer.
Yeah, you can't argue with what tastes good. So that's Ryan Geist absolutely knocked it out of the ballpark. It's such a good light beer and good summer beer. So here we go.
All right. Thanks, John. We appreciate it.
Thank you, John.
Looking forward to talking to you soon.
Thanks for all you do. Take care, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
There you go. John Cunningham, Athletic Director, University of Cincinnati. A lot of good stuff in there, Dave.
Absolutely.
Any reaction? Anything you take from that?
Not entirely. I mean, I think the main point was to discuss the opportunity with Jason and Travis. I mean, the big thing that I took away was and I know he mentioned it, and it could be hard, especially the way it's been at UC. We have had a lot of athletic directors over the years, but I think something that I truly do want to see is a stronger effort in honoring our greats and not waiting so long and not maybe having such stringent requirements that have been in the past, or maybe in the past. Like we could never. It's very hard to get a straight answer of what some of those are or weren't.
You don't have to. I think, Dave, your point is you don't have to only retire Oscar and Kenyon, right? Like there's a lot of space between people that were just good players but not greats, and Hall of Fame player of the year, number 1 picks in the draft. Like it doesn't have to be all or nothing.
Yeah, you don't have to be like unanimous first team All-American or else. Like there's so many. I mean, in both sports, but I mean, me personally, like so many guys in basketball that I feel like we're missing out on, and then especially some in football too along the way. But I mean, a lot more recent than former. But like, I mean, just so many guys along the lines in basketball that I feel like there's like you said, there's got to be a middle ground between nothing and unanimous first team All-American.
Right. Agreed. All right, let's timestamp that. That timestamp brought to you by Turtles Brew. 0 sugar, 0 carbs, gluten-free, 6% ABV, bourbon-infused sweet tea. They have lemonade tea. They have strawberry mint. They have cherry lime, raspberry peach, orange vanilla. 50 locations in the greater Cincinnati area. And Dave, I hear might be pouches in the near future for Turtles Brew.
Pouches
like an adult Capri Sun.
I know. That brings me back to my UT days of when we used to sneak alcohol into football games in something that back then was called a platypus, which was like a malleable soft flask. And I once duct taped a half-gallon one to my inner thigh and brought into a football game.
These will be 12 ounces, Dave. Not a gallon, not a metric ton. Just 12 ounces.
Then I'll duct tape, then I'll be able to get a whole bunch of them in.
Right. Five packs or individual when they hit the market. So keep an eye on that. With that said, I think obviously the next logical step is to discuss basketball. And before we do that, we will talk basketball with our good friends from Team Ticker. It's the one-of-a-kind sports sign for Bearcat fans. It's a high-tech retro display that provides daily updates of the latest news, stats, schedules, and much more. No subscription required. If you're looking for the perfect addition to your dorm room, your apartment, your man cave, or a gift for that special Bearcats fan, go to teamticker.com. Pick up your Team Ticker today. There you see the Seapaw. Aaron's got the Bearcat. The sale for 2024, $50 off your purchase when you use promo code BCJ. www.teamticker.com for more details. It's over, Dave. The basketball season has come to an end. For the second year in a row, it ends in the quarterfinals of the NIT. Maybe I'm crazy. It feels a lot different now than it did a year ago, does it not?
Yeah, I think because you saw a level of competitiveness inside the Big 12. So the worst fears always were like, man, is this just going to be
a bloodbath? Close?
Is this going to be a bloodbath? Right. This is going to be a bloodbath. Like, are we going to beat West Virginia and UCF and that's it? That obviously was not close to being the case. So that first bit of, anxiety, fear, or whatever is over. Then you have a nice run at the end of the season. You win a couple games in the conference tournament. You win a couple games in the NIT. and you feel kind of good about things because what you hope, and we have to say hope because who the hell knows, due to the ridiculousness that is the college basketball transfer portal, you have hope because the hope is the nucleus that was largely responsible for a lot of the good is hopefully returning.
Right.
And you're supplementing with other quality parts, but not necessarily wholesale changes and trying to find, we need to find a guy that's going to play 33 minutes and score 15 points a game. Like, I'm sure Wes will gladly take one of those.
Sure.
But it's not like, holy shit, we lost 75% of our scoring. We've got to go find a whole bunch of impact. I mean, yes, he's going to be looking for impact. He'd be a dereliction of duty if he wasn't doing that. But it's
they're just not
different.
Yeah. They're not in a position where we need to add more rotation guys. We need to add more like quality depth to the middle and bottom of the roster. That's there. I mean, again,
yeah,
you never know in the portal. It is what it is. But like that core should be there, especially you had Rayvon, you had Tyler Betsy, you had Tyler McKinley. Like that core in the middle portion of the roster is fine. You don't have to do a lot of supplementing of that to continue building the foundation. Like we're working on the living room and the master bedroom. Like we're working on the important stuff now, Dave. We're not building foundations anymore.
Right. No, so I think, once you, I know a lot of people or some people didn't, ho-hummed and whatever, NIT, and I see both sides. I'm always like, if you have the opportunity to play and the guys want to play, then you play and you try to win every game that you play. But I don't think losing last night changes anything. I'm not sure many people would have a different opinion if they lost last night versus won the NIT.
Sure. Now we'd have had a different conversation if like they had lost at home to San Francisco. That would not have ended the season on a high note. But here's the other part. We saw a lot of growth over the final 10 games from Simas Lukosius. I think we saw a lot of growth, even though he's still roller coaster Dan, from Dan Skillings in terms of, even though he still does some things that make you want to throw your TV out the window at times, he's producing. He's putting up 12, 15, 18, sometimes 20 and 22 points a game, 12 rebounds yesterday. Like I think over the last, third of the season, we saw Dan take a jump. And then maybe the biggest thing, Dave, and I'll let you comment on this, and then I have a
well, before you do, I just, because it's important what you brought up about Dan. And I want to bring up a stat here.
Okay.
He had this doesn't seem right. He just had an offer against Kansas State. He didn't play. I mean, the Yahoo Sports app is not always the most reliable, but like it's just showing him zeros all the way across the board. Did he not play?
Is that his hip injury? Was that his hip injury?
Yeah, he might have missed that. Yeah, he did miss that game.
All right. So the game before that, he had 8 points against Houston at Houston, February 27th. After that, his fewest points he ended up being the leading scorer for the team, by the way, which I'm not sure I would have thought of. But we talked about like he would have the 20, and then he'd have the 3, and then he'd have the 17, and then he'd have the 6. He had no game under 13 or no game under 12 points. He had 12 against Indiana State. So from March 5th on, roughly 10 games, no games under 12 points, and then his worst rebounding performance was 4. He had 12 last night. He had 8 against San Francisco, 7 against Kansas, 9 against Oklahoma. Like he certainly found a more consistent rhythm throughout the last month and a half of the season.
And I think, Dave, you also got to a point with CMOS where he looked like more than just a third option. Like all of a sudden, over the last 10 games, like if that guy is your first option, you're in decent shape. If he's your second option, boy, you feel real good about things, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, outside of the 5 against Baylor in the conference tournament, I mean, he had kind of like Dan. I mean, 3 games over 25, a bunch, all others in double figures. So, yeah, I mean, there's not much to. I mean, there's a lot of things to look forward to, and now it's again, it's the stuff I'm not a huge fan of. I like it from the player standpoint because I think it's the right thing for them to be able to do, but I'm not a big fan of it in general. It's just see what you can keep and see what you can add.
Yeah, I think one of the nice parts, though, if you're in the situation Cincinnati's in right now, we know that they have a decent NIL in terms of just the overall health of it. You can spend, like, it doesn't have to be just money you spend in free agency. You are allowed to spend that money on some of your own guys.
Well, yeah,
and
I think they should.
But what I'm saying, though, is like if you're dialed in on your core returning and people are trying to come at you from the outside and get your core or, guys at the top of your core in the portal or whatever, it's not like you're not allowed to say, okay, we got that much. Like you can get that much here.
Yeah.
Right? Like you can treat them like guys that are entering a contract year, because everybody's in a contract year in college sports now. But it doesn't necessarily mean just because your guys are coveted that you're screwed, because now you can say, what are we talking? Let's discuss, let's negotiate, let's tango and figure out where you're at in this process so we can be right there with you.
For sure. And I think
that's different. My point being, that's different from last year when 6 of your top 7 players ended up leaving.
Yes, for sure. Absolutely.
And now you're doing everything you can to piece something together. They're not in that position right now.
You hope that you've built up some equity with your own guys, that you're you can write a first refusal, so to speak.
I thought that was a great conversation from John, talking about seeing this as like the second half of the book. It was a 2-year window, as opposed to we're so blinders now that there's no consideration that maybe this leads to something in the next step with this group.
Especially with fans, that stems from that there are those programs or those outliers, like take Kansas State basketball last year for an example.
Sure.
Where they are able to hit it and figure out a way to revamp basically a whole roster and then still have success that very next year. But the reality of it is while everyone likes to say, well, the portal means that you can change the trajectory very quickly, I'm still not sure, you can supplement, especially if we're talking basketball, like you can supplement pieces, but I don't know how much you are truly changing from one year to the next, from not good to really good, or from okay to great, like in one season. I think that's still more of a challenge than maybe we sometimes think it will be.
Yeah, I mean, you can hit the lottery, and there are going to be teams that it happens for every year because there's so many teams now that are turning over 6, 7, 8, whatever roster spots.
Mm-hmm.
There are going to be a couple that hit. There are going to be a couple that completely bomb. And then there are going to be some in the middle. Like, that's the law of averages. That's how this shit works. But you're just in so much of a better place. You look at Purdue. that core has been building for 2 years. You look at Marquette, that core has been building. Obviously UConn's a bit of a different animal because they won a national championship last year. And guess what? When you win a national championship, you lose guys.
Mm-hmm.
But you also become much more attractive for guys to come in because you just won a damn national championship.
Well, my other team, Tennessee, all the guys that contribute to a lot of the minutes are 4th and 5th year juniors and seniors, and then they add Dalton Connect out of nowhere, and look what happens.
Right.
Those almost everybody else that sees significant minutes has been on that roster for at least 3 years, 2 to 3 to, in some cases, 4 and 5.
I know this is crazy. It's a crazy concept in sports these days, Dave. But continuity and playing with your teammates for a long time, it seems to be a positive.
Sometimes it's beneficial.
As long as those guys don't stink.
Right.
If they stink, we always joke about that too. Team A was 143rd on offense and 119th on defense, but they return all their guys next year. Or I don't know that's a good idea.
Yeah.
But let's get to the topic everybody wants to talk about right now, Dave.
My trip to Reno?
No, we'll get to that in a minute. Day Thomas in the San Francisco game in overtime breaks his foot. That allows for a 2-game window of Jizzle James as your starting point guard. And let's just call a spade a spade. He was outstanding. Was he perfect? No. Do I wish he could have knocked down 1 or 2 of those threes where Indiana State was very obviously just going under screens and trying to keep him out of the mid-range and daring him to shoot the 3? Yeah, that would have probably opened things up and changed the game a little. But it's not – he had to take those threes, by the way. I'm not saying they are bad shots. They were excellent shots. Indiana State said, I don't think you can make that. But is the equation different than it was a week ago? Because now you have seen what a 30-plus minute Jizzle James looks like.
Are you asking me?
Yes, that's a question to you.
Yes, I think it is. I think you do have to take a long, hard look at that and kind of look at the way. Yeah, it is still like an incredibly small sample size.
Sure, but it's a small sample size, but he was really freaking good.
Oh, I know. I'm looking at it more as like the totality of like not taking his individual play more so out of it and looking at it in the grand scheme of a roster and a 31 game schedule. But yes, absolutely. Like that'd be like, your starting quarterback going out, the backup coming in, and like 2 straight games he throws for like 350 and 4 touchdowns and maybe 1 interception.
Right.
And you're just like, hey, thanks for the work. But back to the and I know it's a little bit different in basketball because there's no way he's gonna pull, regardless of how he did, he might have not missed a shot and averaged 40 a game. You still wouldn't be wanting him to play every minute next year.
Right, of course.
So it is a little bit different. But yes, of course. Like it showed you, I think, what he's certainly capable of, and yet where he can still get much, much better. But yeah, it was a revelation. It was exciting. It was, any adjective you want to put in it, especially moving forward. If you can, like we've talked about because we don't know, like I would be, over the moon if I'm those guys, if I'm Wes and those guys, and I'm going into portal season and And I know, I mean, they'll know at some point, but like I know I'm bringing back 2 guards that had never played in the Big 12 and more than held their own.
Yep.
2 wing guys and a post presence defensive menace. Like, if that's my 5, I'm real damn happy now trying to go find some dudes to go supplement that.
Sure. I mean, exactly. I mean, even
just
like,
how many Big 12 teams are going into next year with the point guard situation that UC could potentially have?
Right. Very few. Very few. And you have Dan and CMOS, you know. I think what's going to be interesting as we get into this, and I don't want to like completely derail this, so I'll just make this quick because I do have something I want to get to. Where you've got, instead of like this year, you basically had Dan, because CJ was out, you had Dan, CMOS, John, and Josh spread across the 2, 3, 4. And then later in the year, you saw, because, you know, an impact of CJ not being available, you saw Day and Jizzle more play together. If you can bring Day and Jizzle back and you add a combo guard to that, and those 3 guys, and I think you feel more confident about this now than you did a week ago, that you have 3 guys that can man the 1 and 2, and can kind of rotate in between each other. And you still have, if you need Dan to slide into that role and give you some minutes there, you do. If you go get a wing shooter, or, you know, somebody like a name that's been mentioned with Cincinnati, Connor Hickman, now all of a sudden you look a lot better in the backcourt, and you're very stable on the wings. Rayvon Griffith is coming in. You know, if you go get one more, you've got Dan and CMOS, and those guys are kind of the 3. Now you can play small ball 4 with CMOS at the 4, which he did really well. And I think that's probably his best spot, is that small ball 4. Right. For the people that say that they need to go get a small ball 4, I think they have one. I think it's CMOS, and I think he's one of your 2 or 3 best players. But he can absolutely play the 3. You know, if you bulk Dan up a little bit more, he can give you minutes maybe at the 4 and rotations next year. And you add Tyler and you have Aziz at the 5. Like, all of a sudden, the math starts making a lot more sense as to there's not going to be weaknesses that are on the floor that you have to hide very often.
Oh, yeah. I think having the question answered of can Day and Jizzle play at this level, having that question answered allows them to do so much more, in my opinion, especially if they can find that combo guy, because we already know they can play together. They proved that that they can do it, that there's not a precipitous drop off offensively or defensively, but when those 2 guys are on the floor together. So now that you know that you can do that, now you can go get another, like you said, combo guard. And the way you just went through a lot of the machinations of how lineups could work, but like you just have much more versatility when you have 3 guys for 2 spots versus 2 guys for 2 spots, or 1 spot really. And then you can mix and match based on matchups. Like, I feel like that when CJ went out, and in the time that, you know, especially early, I mean, when Aziz and Jamil weren't eligible yet, but once CJ went out, I felt like they were a little bit hamstrung on how much they could truly like match up with other teams.
Because those guys had to be on the floor 30 plus.
Everybody had to be on the floor, so it didn't matter who you were playing. This was kind of our lineup. And we couldn't necessarily take as advantage as we would have liked in some other situations if we had a full complement and a roster that, you know, and we talked about it. I mean, we've talked about it before about the extra bigs and how maybe that was, you know, hindsight's always 20/20, but I think that too, knowing that now and knowing what you have in Day and Jizzle, I think just makes it that much not easier, because it's still going to be hard to get coveted players, but like I think you're it's easier to identify like this is truly what we want because it allows us to now do A, B, and C. When this year it was just kind of like, well, we can really only do A because we have maybe too many bigs and a wing that we were counting on for 25 minutes a game who played 7 games.
Right. So yeah, it makes things very interesting. I do want to get to something on Jizzle. This probably isn't going to be popular, Dave. I got a lot yesterday in terms of just imagine this would be a tournament team if Jizzle had played this many minutes all year. This would be, I know, but like the coaching staff screwed up. They didn't play him enough minutes.
They should have played him 38 minutes a game in Big 12 play.
Have you ever given consideration to maybe he's playing as well as he is right now because of the way he's handled, because of the way that they allowed him to naturally grow and progress and not have this stress on him every night of you have to play like 30 minutes and you have to be, on your absolute best every night. And that can damage guys.
What it tells me is that people still look at their phones while the Bearcats are on defense.
Yes. Yes.
Like, let's be honest. Like, has he gotten better? Yes, he has. Is he still anywhere near where Day-Day is defensively on the ball? No. And so,
no, but he's also now proven that he can go get you 25.
Sure.
So,
but
now
there's
you have both.
Right.
Now you have the offense and the defense.
There's some give and take in there. Like, yeah, you can give me 25 or you giving up 15. Like, it's gotten better.
Right.
But I'm still like, I don't know. I still find it hilarious that 2 games in the NIT is the determination of this should have been going on 2 months ago on back-to-back nights playing Iowa State and Houston.
I also get a kick out of people not understanding what I was talking about after the Bradley game when I said Jizzle had a guy guarding him that he was better than. That is a credit to Jizzle because he looked at that dude and said, can't guard me.
No.
Can't guard me. And I'm just going to attack you over and over and over and over again. That is not knocking him for acknowledging he was better than the kid from Bradley and that he exposed that weakness. That is what you want your best players to do.
Yeah. Well, it's like it's like, we're getting towards the draft. It's like if you're looking at small school guys that have great measurables and they're dominating, I'm like, yeah, they better be. They're stronger, bigger, and faster than everybody else on the field. If they're not dominating, then why are we drafting them?
Right.
It's not like, it's not a knock. It's just like it's kind of expected. Like you had an incredible mismatch. I would hope you would take advantage of it.
And you burned it. Like that's your job. That's what you're supposed to do.
If you're as good as everyone thinks you are, then that should just be second nature.
Right.
I'm not gonna throw my hands up and be like, oh my God. That'd be like if I walked out there and he did that to me. No one would be like, I can't believe he did that.
Right. Like, yeah, he had Dave on him.
Yeah. So
also by far the best on the team at creating his own shot. That's because he makes tough shots better than everybody else, Matt. Like
they can create their own shot. Can they make them?
Right. Creating your own shot is one thing.
I could
rising up and knocking that bad boy in. That's different.
Yeah, he does have in a lost art of the mid-range game, which is funny. I saw a tweet that had like the shot chart from last night, and it was all of UC's shots from various places on the court, and then Indiana State had everything at 3, everything at layup, and there was one outlier like mid-range jumper. But I mean, hey, he has a knack for that shot, that pull up, and it's a very inefficient shot, but if he's going to hit it at 50%, then go for it.
Look, it's not a great shot, but if you're elite at making that shot, then okay. I'm okay with you taking mid-range jumpers if you just rise up on dudes and not only just like hit them from one spot, like those baseline ones he hits are terrible shots.
Oh, awful. Because
And
he's out of position, so it's automatically almost a 5-on-4 fast break, depending
Right.
on how the ball, if you miss it, depending on how the ball kicks out.
Yeah. But he makes them so often that, like, in the beginning of the season, I'm like, stop. Quit shooting that damn shot. But he makes them so often. Now when he rises up and hits one, I'm like, that's two.
Hey, at least he makes.
That's
And Dave made a bunch of them too, but I would be more infuriated at the foot on the 3-point line step back jumper than the 14-foot one.
Look, I think the way that they have developed him has been really, really good, because they when he started to show that his game was expanding, they put more and more on his plate. And the nice thing is that he was hungry. And the more you put on his plate, the more that he ate. And the more that he ate, the better he got. And kudos to him for that. But I also think there's some kudos that needs to go to the coaching staff for figuring out how to, do the balancing act of having an awesome freshman that's not, a guy that's just like a lottery pick, a guy that's, Jarris Walker. And that's not saying Houston didn't develop Jarris Walker, because they did, but Jarris Walker was 6'9" with like a 7'2" wingspan that could shoot threes and like do all of these other things.
It's a very delicate balance of the progression of a young player and giving them more, and then but then also not throwing them to how many freshmen have been forced into extended minutes in the Big 12 and have just gotten their teeth kicked in, and it has ruined their psyche.
Yeah.
Or they've gone into a shell. Like, I think there's no harm in a progression that we saw. He clearly got better as the year went on. As it wasn't like he got more minutes and the more minutes affected him adversely. So he was clearly showing them that he could handle it in practice and doing the things that you're supposed to do to earn minutes, and then going out in a game situation and proving that I do deserve those minutes. And then by circumstance, he got an opportunity to do what he did the last two games, which I think does change has to change your mindset for next year, but also just tells you like this dude can take on even more.
Right.
And we'll keep growing with him, and we'll keep developing him. And then, and I see nothing wrong with the way that things went this year with that situation, because like we talked about at the beginning of the year, we just had no idea. And why are you going to risk, when you got no idea, why are you going to risk doing something that could mess up the only other guy that can play that position really on the team?
Yeah. That wasn't necessarily the plan with Micah leaving kind of right at the deadline, but that was the hand you were dealt, and they managed to navigate it really well. So I just think there's a lot more nuance to it than just, well, look at how well Jizzle's playing at the end, and that meant he should have played more from the beginning. Well, maybe you should just consider that, because of it's the other thing too, Dave, that cracks me up is like the whole you got to hold players accountable, and then you take a freshman and develop them like they did with Jizzle, where there was some accountability that had to be expressed because his defense wasn't where they needed it to be in a lot of areas. So then the battle cry, Dave, is you got to hold these guys accountable. And it's like, well, they are. Well, no, not that one.
Yeah.
No, that's not. I didn't mean that. Wait.
Yes, it would be great if you played it old school style, and 5 guys played offense and 5 guys played defense. And
Sure.
But I mean, believe me, I understand. I was a proponent earlier in the year when we were having trouble scoring of getting him more minutes. But
Sure.
I don't think there is. I draw the line though at like the idea of if he played a bunch more minutes, that it just automatically would have made them a tournament team. I'm not going that. I'm not going to go that far. Like that's a bridge too far for me.
Do you even want to talk about that game from last night?
No,
or you want to give your thoughts?
No, I don't care. It was I thought it was a very well played game, a very entertaining game. I'm not big on I think you and I are very much in the same boat of like, I'm not real big on talking about officials too much. I mean, if we're, players make mistakes in the course of a 40-minute game, officials make mistakes in the course of a 40-minute game. I don't think anyone's mistake is more galling or glaring or more important than the other. I mean, that it was unfortunate that in that very, very small segment, such a big swing happened, but at the same time, they came back and tied the game.
Yeah.
And had the ball, and Jizzle threw a bad pass. So like, yes, I thought it was a terrible no call, and it certainly, and Wes was well within his right to react the way that he did. And sure, if you want to say that cost him the game, fine. I will just say like they came back and tied it and didn't win.
I don't think it cost them the game, but it just created an unnecessary obstacle.
Right? Yeah, I mean, you threw a huge obstacle in the way that never should have been there. But again, like I say I want to win all the games, and so I'm disappointed that they lost. But I really don't want to. I don't see the need to talk about a quarterfinal NIT loss to Indiana State too much.
Yeah.
Other than for being a big guy, that fella seems to fall down a lot when no one touches him.
Well, they did touch him because there were fouls called every time he fell down.
Yes. Well.
There were no fouls called when he shoved people in the back, not just Aziz, but anybody trying to get a rebound in his general vicinity. But, Larry nerd. I just, like I talked about last night,
like you talked about last night, because I'm not a masochist, and so I don't jump on your therapy sessions and listen to
sometimes
talk about loss.
You're there sometimes.
Don't say you're never.
Sometimes you are.
No, I've never been after a loss. I am very much asleep.
The one thing I hate in sports, probably more than anything, is the official that blows a call and then tees up the coach for being mad about it.
Yeah.
You blew a call.
Usually, when you blow a call, you let them air you out because you kind of know, man, I kind of missed that one, so I'm not gonna. Now they may have not had a choice, because I'm pretty sure Wes was well on the floor.
Wes could have probably dunked as far out on the floor as he was.
So maybe that is probably why, if I had to guess.
But look, man, you just blew a call in a 4-point game of like end of the season magnitude. Like one team goes home.
I am not disagreeing with you at all. I'm just saying that like protocol might have dictated like you can't exactly, regardless of how bad of a call I missed, like if you're 14 feet out on the court while the game's going on, I kind of have to give you a technical.
The game wasn't going on. There was a timeout called. And then Wes expressed his displeasure with the decision-making of the gentleman in stripes.
Yeah. Which, you and I talked about it too. It's like, all the good refs are refing the NCAA tournament. So
I guess two of these guys did the majority of the season in the A-Sun. Oh,
yeah. I mean, I tried to look him up. The one guy was maybe like an OVC guy, or had been at some point. It was hard to find any info on him. But yeah, I mean, you're best of the best, not reffing quarterfinal NIT game in Terre Haute, Indiana.
Probably not. No. Unless you could have got some tournament guys over from like Indianapolis or somewhere. But anywho, the other thing being like, I hate that is what takes away from, and this is why This is why I think they need held accountable. This is why I went off on the rant last night that I did and did something I never do, which is argue with George, because George is almost always right. And I am generally in George's camp of like, just win the game. Like, but in a game of that magnitude, there has to be some accountability, because you took the spotlight away from what was an awesome game. An awesome game.
Yeah.
Two teams playing well. Was Cincinnati perfect? No. Did their defense leave quite a bit to be desired the first 12 minutes of the second half? Heck yeah. But that is also the result of playing a great offensive team.
Yeah. I mean, Aziz struggled all night, I think, mentally realizing I have to come out this far, because you're not used to it, until you're always afraid you're going to get beat. But I'm like, that dude is not beating anybody to the basket.
Well, but also Aziz has to have a responsibility of he's there for rim protection.
Right. And they do a lot of back cuts and screen.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's just a tough cover, especially when you're not anticipating that guy just floating 25 feet out and shooting from out there.
Right.
As much as they tell you he's going to, you're a shot blocker. Like, your comfort zone is in a totally different spot on the floor.
You know what I'm more than comfortable with, Dave? And people get mad at me for it. Walking away from a great game or walking away from a game where the other team played really well and just going, hey, man, they played really well. Hey, that was two teams that got after it, and one team was going to end up on the wrong side of the score. We'll break it down. We'll talk about why. But, like, you got to tip your cap to, I just watched a really good game. And I feel like I watched a very good game, but I feel like I didn't get the full enjoyment of that, because there was always this, like, what the hell was that?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that doesn't, why is it called that way on this end? And on the other end, like, I talked to somebody today who had gone back over the tape individually. This was not somebody affiliated with UC, but somebody that knows basketball, that said, like, 8 times UC guys were standing here for the rebound, and all of a sudden they look like one of those flailing arm guys at a car dealership, and Indiana State gets the rebound. And I saw a couple people on the message board like, well, UC just didn't get the job done on the glass, because Indiana State was allowed to shove them from behind, get the rebound, and go the other way. Like, stuff like that, it annoys me, because it takes away from what we should have been spending 24 hours, even in a loss.
Yeah.
Even at the end of the season, saying, damn, that was a good game. Damn, that was fun to watch. And that was two teams playing at a high level, which I do think it was. But there's a bad taste left in your mouth, because it feels like it didn't get the proper spotlight it deserved.
Right. Like, it could have still been a great final however many minutes without all of that going on. Like,
yeah.
But either team could have still won at that point.
Right.
So, but no. I mean, they played well in a hostile environment against a really good, I mean, I don't know if I'll go as really good, but pretty good team.
Offensively, they're awesome.
Oh, yeah.
They did finish number 1 in the Valley in defense. They're not a great defensive team, but they don't have to be, because they know we're going to get you offensively with all the way we do things. And I saw some people the other night or last night that were like, why can't Cincinnati run an offense like that? Their offense is very basic, essentially. Shoot threes, and then when you start making a bunch of threes, cut back door on closeouts and score at the rim. Like, it wasn't a complicated.
I still wonder, like, I know the numbers are supposed to take opponent out of it. Like, I'm not sure I buy that offense would still be that good in another.
I do.
You think that
I do for one reason, Dave.
Their offense would still be that good playing in the Big 12?
It would still be one of the most efficient offenses in the country, yeah. For one reason. They can really, really pass. They don't have to dribble to move you. Like, I am always going to be a stan for teams that can move even really good defense, because look, it's not rocket science. The pass moves faster than the dribble. If you can move a defense via the pass and never and kind of keep them in scramble mode because the ball is popping, as basketball folks like to say, that's going to be a really good offense no matter what level you put it in.
Yeah.
There was very little isolation. There was very little like I'm gonna get you off the dribble. It was move it, constant kind of movement, and the things that the rewards of being a great shooting team, you end up catch and shoot a lot because you're so good passing that you're just getting a good look, or like I said, the threat of a pass, the closeout comes, boop, I'm backdoor at the rim, because you have to respect the catch and shoot off of good passing. So maybe they're not 5, but I'd be shocked if they weren't top 20. Like that's a team that understood and was really well disciplined on the offensive end, and a team that was recruited very clearly for their skill.
Well, I mean, either way, they certainly should have been in the tournament over some of the teams that got in, and that's regardless of the results after the fact. I mean, it's very easy to be like, look at Virginia and how terrible they were. I mean, the body of work says they should have been in over Virginia, not Virginia scoring 14 points or whatever it was, But moving on then, portal itself. Obviously, we don't know, we don't know a number. They just had a game last night. I'm sure there weren't, very realistically saying, there probably weren't even conversations with the exit interviews and stuff with the team today. But your assessment of the ideal situation, as far as, I won't even say numbers, because like we've already said, who the hell knows? And I'm not going to assume and put that out, but like,
well, there's also a problem with doing the number thing, Dave. It's like, who is it?
Right. That's what I mean.
If it's somebody that like you don't expect, now instead of just having a number,
I'm just saying. Right. That's what I mean. Like, what are, in an ideal world, Wes is out there and he can do whatever he wants. What is his ideal situation as far as adding to this roster for next year?
Scoring combo guard, I think is, right at the top of the Christmas wish list that you can add. And now, Dave, think about, we knew they needed that 2 weeks ago. Now think about if you add a guy with pop offensively next to Jizzle, and you have, 2 guys now, Asmus and Hunter. Like, you've got that Texas situation where you got a couple guys that you can lean on that are probably going to get you combined 30 a night, 32 a night.
Not against the Vols, baby. Locked old mini man up.
I thought that was actually Disu. If Disu would have been better, I think they would have ended up winning that game, but he was dreadful.
Asmus had like 6 points.
I know, but Disu was like opens things up for Asmus.
Yeah.
Because then you have to go. He was dreadful. So then they just smothered Asmus and didn't let him get anything.
So was Dalton. Cost me a mega parlay.
So I think that is still like number one, top of the board priority. 2-3 type shooter, because they are going to need some spacing still.
So you mean like a healthy CJ Frederick?
Something, in that vein, something similar.
And I don't mean him specific. I mean like that type of a player.
Right. Something in that, somebody that's 38+% like consistently from 3 that you can, really kind of bolster your rotations by putting a guy in that can get you shots from the perimeter, and not, just more than anything, make the other team respect it to where they can't just sag and know we're going to be able to recover because the guy doesn't want to shoot it.
That was the problem when CJ got hurt, is that you didn't have to really tag anybody until CMOS got hot on the perimeter, which made
And even then, Dave,
which made it that much harder for Jizzle and Dan and Day to get inside on anybody.
Even that, Dave, CMOS is never a guy you're really going to tag because he's never standing still.
No, he's a lot of off curl catch and shoot guy. He's not a stand on the wing and wait to get it kicked out to guy.
Well, and the reason I say that is because, like with CJ, you could stand him over on the right wing, and his guy couldn't go more than 2-3 feet away from him.
Right.
So even like CMOS just doesn't stand there and wait for a catch and shoot. That's not who he is. That's not his strength as a player. But so yeah, they didn't have, even when CMOS got hot, they didn't have that because he was never over there spacing the floor. He was running off curls and drags and pin downs and elevators and hammer screens, like you name it. They did everything humanly possible to get him as many open looks as they could because he's a really good shooter on the move where, you know, the ball's coming to him, he's getting to a spot, they meet at the same time, bang. And that's counted as a catch and shoot, but that's a lot different of a catch and shoot than the way CJ Frederick did it. Yeah. So they don't have that guy. Even my point, they don't have that guy even with CMOS.
Yeah.
That stretches the floor just with his presence.
Right.
Because CMOS is never just standing over there like and then I think they need to get with kind of the Big 12 a little bit and add a guy in that 6'8", 6'9", rebounder, tough, physical, can get you some buckets inside. If he can stretch the floor a little bit, great. But I just think
they didn't really. They didn't really have much at all that you could throw into this year and count on to get a basket.
No, almost nothing.
And I'm not saying that needs to be the focal point, but that does have to be at least an option.
Sure. You need to have that guy on the roster, and they didn't.
Aziz gave you lobs, putbacks, and free throws. I mean, he really didn't give you much at all of a true back to the basket post type presence.
Tyler Betsy, I'm very high on Tyler Betsy, but freshmen generally do not shoot 38% from three.
I'm just not. I think anything you get from a freshman that's not a point guard is found money. Like I'm not expecting any freshman to come in and be a true contributor on a high level team. 5 stars, Stephon Castle at UConn. But like
here's a great comparison for you. I think Brandon Garrison is as talented as just about any big man in the country.
Yeah.
And he was like, if you just look at numbers, he was pedestrian this year at Oklahoma State. But if you look at size, length,
sure,
verticality, post moves, can stretch the floor a little bit, like he's everything you would want in kind of a modern college big man. And he was a freshman this year and struggled on a team that had to have him. Like his usage rate wasn't exactly small. So it's difficult for a freshman, for sure.
Yeah, I can't count on, not that they're not. I mean, Garrison averaged 7.5 and 5 rebounds.
Right. And I think he's incredibly talented.
Yeah. So, whatever you get, I mean, especially on this team, like, I don't really think they need Tyler Betsy to come in and be something extraordinary.
If you don't get the 4 you want in the portal, that opens the door obviously more for him.
Well, yeah, definitely.
The big guy scorer is essential. All the best teams this year had a dude. Eddie, Klingon, Roberts, Baycott. Okay. Like you know what they're probably not going to get, Matt? They're probably not going to get a 7'4" guy that ended up becoming the player of the year in college basketball. And with Klingon, a 7'4" guy that if he wanted to could probably be the player of the year in college basketball.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying. But I think if you're as good as we think they can be 1 through 4 with a couple slight upgrades to this roster, you can play a defensive 5. It hurt you playing a defensive 5 this year through the first 2/3 of the year because there were holes on offense that had not been developed into yet. So, sure, I think everybody would love it. I think that's why the prospect of the talent of Jamil is tantalizing, because he can be that. He hasn't gotten there yet, but he has that kind of touch and ability around the rim. I think maybe it's time to kind of figure out what's happening in the conference. And there's not many dominant big men in the Big 12.
I mean, are there any?
Dickinson.
He's not that. I mean, offensively, he's not that guy though. He does the hooks but he's not a.
Well, you can get him. You can throw him the ball on the block, and he gets you a bucket.
That's I think more because of his overall skill set of being able to go out and hit the 3 and do some things like that. I mean, the guys Matt mentioned are more of the old school, truly throw it into the post and have him operate that way. I mean, more of a Garrison than I think. But outside of Dickinson, I don't know. I mean,
Roberts, who's a 4, he's not. That's what I was. I was
right.
talking more about a Jawan Roberts type than I was talking about a Donovan Klingon type.
Right. Or a Kalkbrenner.
Yeah, who's essentially a shot blocker, and he's he's a better version of what you would like Aziz to be at his best.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Shot blocker, lob catcher, can maybe hit you a little 10-foot kind of hook or whatever.
He can be efficient in and around the free throw line, yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of where my brain is at. And then obviously if you have something unexpected, then you need to go out and find somebody to replace the unexpected, like an equal level type player.
Hopefully we don't have to worry about that.
Right. Anything else basketball?
Not really. I think, the portal is what the portal is, but there's not a whole.
We'll talk about it plenty as we.
There's not a everyone was so worried about get the season over with so they can get to the portal. Who are all the incredible dudes that are in the portal right now?
Right.
Right. They seem to be incredible because they're all that's out there. I'm waiting for the guys that lose this weekend to get into the portal. I don't.
Well, and there's a bunch of guys that lost last weekend that still aren't in the portal yet.
Right, exactly. Your season's been over for 3 weeks. Okay. You're a nice player, but
right.
I'm not sprinting to the altar with you.
I think that does. I'm trying to think if there's anything left for basketball. We will have regular portal updates. I updated on everybody on the board today, bearcatjournal.com, about a player the coaching staff has on their transfer board that they were in to see. And that's kind of the first, since the season has come to close, that's the first little, nugget of activity. So go check that out. And let's timestamp it. Turtles Brew. 0 sugar, 0 carbs, gluten-free, bourbon-infused sweet tea, lemonade tea, strawberry mint, cherry lime, raspberry peach, orange vanilla. Over 100 locations throughout Ohio. Visit turtlesbrew.com for more information and locations. A portion of the proceeds go to save the sea turtles. All right, Dave. Biggest news maybe of the day. Got to practice today. and noticed a shiny new number 12 in black playing linebacker and thought, that guy looks kind of familiar. So I looked over to the guys in the red jerseys at quarterback, and I saw 2, and I saw 16, and I saw 5, and I saw a couple walk-ons. And I thought to myself, hey, self, number 12 is not in red today. And that looks an awful lot like number 12 over there in black. And of course, that's the conversation that's been raging on the interwebs all afternoon and evening. Brady Drogosh spent his first day at linebacker. Your thoughts?
It's what the spring is for, 1, and 2. From the sounds of it, I have not been out there, but from reading the reports, I have, and if you're keeping a tally at home of how many times you or Keegan writes down quarterback names, I think you've written down Samaj Jones' name more times than his name at quarterback. So that would lend me to believe that he was, third at best, but probably 4th of 4. And he does have athletic traits. He does have size that could lend himself to a position other than quarterback. And if what you reported is true, and I don't have any reason to believe that it's not, that he proposed this idea, then sure. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a situation where he just kind of looked and like Sorsby's got 3 years. Now, it's not guaranteed he's here for 3 years. No, he's in year 3. So he technically could win the Heisman this year and go to the NFL.
I would like that very much. Sign me up.
To borrow a line from Keegan in his Emory Jones evaluation before the season.
Oh, yeah, that one did. We've all had some bad predictions. We don't need to rehash bad football predictions, okay?
You want to talk about that 12-0?
No, not one bit.
There's kind of a logjam in that room, and I would say, like, physically, yeah, you could win with him at quarterback in the American. Like, I think you could probably win a decent amount with him at quarterback. But in this league, you have to, and I think this is a lesson learned from a year ago. You've got to be able to push the ball down the field through the air and not just like take 7 steps and throw it as far as you can throw it.
No, it can't all be shot plays. I mean, this offense last year had like literally, I say it literally, but obviously there was something, but like literally nothing in like the 15 to 25 yard range.
Right.
It was either.
I don't think there was much. There wasn't much from the 10 to 25 yard range.
Right. I mean,
because a lot of those digs, they threw digs to Xavier Henderson for 8 yards.
Yeah. It was at the line of scrimmage, inside 10 yards, or an attempt truly over the top.
Yeah.
And I'm talking air yards, not like a 8-yard crossing route that gets turned into a 17-yard play, but like air yards from the quarterback.
They completed an 8-yard crossing route last year?
I mean, probably not, but just using that as a very basic example that 97.6% of our audience could understand.
Right. So if he's not at that point yet, and I think the problem was you just didn't see that, like, if there's going to be a jump, it's probably going to be like begin from year 1 to year 2. He just was inconsistent. There wasn't a lot of touch. There wasn't a lot of accuracy.
Here's the brutal honesty of the transfer portal and being in the Big 12 now. You don't have any damn time to develop a quarterback. Like, you don't have any time to have a guy go from freshman scout team to backup, sophomore to fighting for the job, junior. Like, there's no time for that shit anymore. And that's not a UC thing. That's like a college football thing. Like
what? Like 60% of college football has a quarterback from the portal, like 60%?
Yeah. Oh, I wouldn't be surprised if it's more than that. Like,
right.
There's no time for that anymore. You either are the dude or I got to go find the dude. Like, you're the dude right away as a freshman, or I got to go find him. And that puts a program like UC in a pretty hard spot because, like, they're probably not getting the dude as a freshman. So, even Samaj Jones, like, I love him. He's on the smaller side. I hope they develop him. But, like, if he's not challenging Sorsby, assuming it's Sorsby, for the starting position next year, assuming Sorsby just doesn't have some insane season, like, he's going to transfer and go play somewhere where he can start because someone's going to go, we need that guy because we need a starter. And UC's got a starter locked up for the next however many years. It's just the way it goes. Like, with quarterbacks in college now, you don't develop guys anymore.
And Drogosh is 6'4", 220, and runs like a deer. Like, there are physical traits.
Can he play tight end?
Dude. Gavin Grover looks like
Travis Kelce?
No.
Bigger?
He's like 6'7".
Yeah.
Like, he's massive.
Oh, Rob Gronkowski?
Like, he's not massive this way yet.
Well, yeah, because he's like 18, maybe 18 years old.
Right. When you see him standing there at the line of scrimmage, you're like, what factory did they produce this guy in?
Could Brady Drogish be Bearcats' Brock Bowers? I mean, he only needs like 15 more pounds, and he's taller and weighs the same.
Didn't Tyson Vite turn a quarterback into an all Big 12
linebacker? Yeah. Lanning.
Yeah. So the blueprint's already there. I just think it's an overall recognition of, like, let's say hypothetically, like, it got to Drogosh and he had to play. He's not what they're looking for in a starting quarterback. And it's a lot like what, I talk about and you talk about with coaches all the time. The second you got to fire your coach. The second you are certain he's not the guy, he can't continue to be the guy. And if they determined we don't feel that Brady Drogosh is our long-term answer at quarterback and we want to keep him in the program, then you got to figure out what's next.
Because if we're being honest, like, they have the pillars of quarterback mapped out. They have the transfer guy they think is the dude. They have the vet backup who they know can win them a game if the starter gets hurt, and then they have the freshman high level developmental guy, and we'll see what happens.
Right.
Outside of a camp arm, you really don't have a reason for another quarterback.
And they have like 2 walk-ons and maybe 3 at quarterback. So
those are your camp arms for higher ground, so that the top 3 guys don't develop shoulder issues.
Right. So, practice today. It's a little chilly. Like I said with John, it was a little chilly, and then all of a sudden we left.
You guys
the temperature jumped like
49 degrees is like freezing you out.
No, it was cloudy and windy. The wind is the wind is the thing.
Yes.
I can handle if it's not windy, you can drop me down like into the upper 30s and I'm still pretty good. If it's 50 with that like crosswind blowing, I'm ready to go home. Yeah, today was cold.
Well, hopefully that's your last cold day, maybe.
But I will say this: given the circumstance that they don't have anywhere inside to practice,
for the spring in Ohio, they've been incredibly lucky.
It's been phenomenal. So don't let me sound like I'm bitching about today.
Friday's going to be almost 70.
Right.
Yeah, they've been very, very lucky.
Yeah. So everything else, spring football related, it's all up on the board. There was a lot of basketball tonight.
We'll cover it because it's important to cover, but like I was listening to a podcast tonight a little bit. It's like it's spring football, man. Like there's not a whole lot concrete that can be taken from it, especially with the roster transition that they're still going under and the fact that they could still add significant pieces.
Right.
So like the shit we talk about tonight could be totally irrelevant, in 2 months or something.
We'll get to it a lot more next Monday, or next Wednesday, obviously, as we get the spring game kind of draws nearer and nearer.
Yeah, like things that we'll actually be looking for in that situation will have a lot more context too. But the day-to-day practice report it's
football practice, man. Like
in the spring.
With no games. They're not getting ready for anything. There's they're just going through individuals a lot, and then at the end of practice, they go live for a couple of periods, and that's about it. So I waited all this time, but Reno, let's hear it, Dave Simone.
Buddy. I don't know what my expectations were. I had pretty good expectations. Just blown out of the water. So much fun. So many wagers, so many degenerates, so many people like screaming at the TVs because Arizona was beating Long Beach by 20 and half the people had it at 20 and a half and half the people had it at like 19 or something. I mean, I cannot recommend it to people that are into the tournament and to placing a little wager on a game. Like just tons of fun. Price point outstanding.
Everybody says Vegas, right? You got to go to Vegas.
I mean,
Reno.
I was that guy. I used to go there all the time, but it's not, of course it's not like what it used to be. And then you sound like an old person, but it was a blast. We had my brother had 36 bets, I believe, on Thursday. He took the under in all 16 games.
How many did he hit? Do you know?
The under went 8-8.
Okay.
So he lost $9 or 10.
He lost the VIN.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it was. If anybody, it will definitely become a tradition. If we stayed, what we paid, how we had VIP. I mean, I don't know if I call it VIP, but like reserve seating for the tournament, which was open bar. Got in front of all the big TVs. Plenty of kiosks to place bets and.
Wait, what did you? I mean, this will resonate with this group here. So it's like $60 a day for all you can drink from like
$67 a day from I think 9 a.m. to basically 12 hours.
Yeah.
9 a.m. to essentially the end of the last game, which started local time at like 7:30.
Right.
So yeah, we definitely got our money's worth.
What's their policy on taking a nap in the booth at the sports book?
I'm sure you're allowed. I mean, I'm sure people did.
Get a little. I mean, I'm not talking about like curling up. I'm talking about like a little. 10-minute dad nap.
I mean, we were there literally for over 12 hours. Like it would have been. I'm sure people did. Catch a little one at halftime of a game or something. But I was fully prepared to join last Wednesday night because it was going to work out perfect. Like 5 o'clock local was kind of like a good time to jump on. We ended up deciding that we were going to go to dinner at that time so we could be done eating before the night game started. And me calling in from a table in one of the restaurants would not have been the point of, like, I wanted to call in and have like all the huge TVs in the background.
Yeah, you wanted to do the Luke Fickle flex of like, I'm sitting at the beach right now.
Yeah.
How are you numbnuts doing?
So it just didn't work out, but
it happens.
Yeah. But
well,
yeah,
I'm glad you had fun. It sounds like, I don't know, give me 4 more years. And then once I don't have, I'll be there.
Yeah, no, it was great. More the merrier.
Because here's the problem, Dave. If I said I was going to do it like next year, she'd be like, "I'm coming," and I'm like, "No,
you can't. You're not really
not.
allowed." I mean, there's plenty of stuff for her to do there, but I'm sure she'd get bored by herself while you're sitting there in the casino
for 13 hours a day.
Yeah. No.
All right, honey. I'll be back at 8 tonight.
Yeah.
It's 8 in the morning. It's 8.
I mean, we really only saw the inside of our room for like 6 hours a day. Never once did either of us consider going outside. I wore gym shorts and a hooded sweatshirt for 72 hours straight. I mean, it was a great guys weekend.
That's lovely. All right. Well, I'm glad you had a good time. We had a great show tonight. Thank you to John Cunningham.
Absolutely.
A lot of really good basketball talk. And it's officially Dave, baseball, obviously, and the spring sports are still going on. But in this world where football and basketball are, the revenue generators, today is the first day of the rest of the year. And
yeah, we're like in the quote unquote downtime.
Yeah. There's not going to be any downtime.
No, but I mean, like,
I know we're technically in the downtime.
Well, we're almost there. What, like May? May is like the true
not
downtime.
Anymore.
No, what's in
not
May?
Anymore.
No.
May is now the open. They closed April for AAU, so May is now the
still,
open
not
period
like,
for AAU.
Still not that much of a. You're not covering football, and it's just kind of one thing. So.
And then June is camps and official visits and commitments for football. And then July is more basketball recruiting for 2025. And then August is camp. I think Reagan said that Keegan looked at her a couple weeks ago and was like, I'm not going to get any free time until like May. And I was like, who said you're going to get free time in May?
May. Yeah, I passed the baton to Keegan for the Athlon article. So for anybody that reads it this year, if it's no good, blame him, not me.
Oh, shit.
I'm sure it will be wonderful.
Delightful. He's very talented.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it'll be great. That's going to wrap it up. We will see you next week. That is the BCJ podcast. Brought to you by the Holy Grail, right here on BearcatJournal.com.